one to play with. There's always PartyPoker.com, where the world plays poker.
What a semi-final last week. One of the best displays of poker ever seen on television. It was poker at its best. Our first three positions at the final table filled by Dave El Blondie Colclough, Barry Hearn, and Ian Fraser. Our second semi-final takes place tonight. Big money is in their sights. Riffle those chips, swipe up those cards. There's only three going on to the final table from here, so buckle up for the ride. Hi, I'm Jesse May. I'm here with snooker and now poker pro Steve Davis. And Steve, if this week's semifinal is anything like last week's, it's going to be a stormer.
Yes, Jesse, the overall standard in this event so far has been superb, but that semi-final was a lesson in chip management. It was brilliant.
And it all came down to nerves and maybe a bit of luck. I mean, Dave Colclough, who has been so unlucky on TV in his career up to this point, just finally grabbed a card out of the air at one point. Dave Colclough with the 2 5s, and he made a nice raise from the big blind, all in, and wasn't that upset to find John Huston with 2 overcards, ace, jack, and ace already been passed, but the ace on the flop really signaled the end of Dave Colclough's tournament. And then
2 cards in the pack he needed, and he got 1.
He did, and there's the reaction. He realizes he finally got a little bit back of what's been given out to him over the course of his TV career. And from there, Dave Colclough never looked back, ended up chip leader at this stage going into the final table. But it really seems to come down to that nerve. Although with that particular hand, I think Dave Colclough might have sent John Huston a little bit on tilt.
Well, certainly, but I think it's always nice to see Dave Colclough in the final stages of an event because I think he adds to it. He's a great study of a great poker player.
It seemed last week that nobody blinked for a while, and then maybe someone took a bad beat and went on tilt a little bit. And if you go on tilt, really there is no saving your chips, is there?
No, and that's the thing about going on tilt, and it happens to everybody. There is a situation where something happens, the last card ruins your game, the river card knocks you out of the tournament or makes you low in chips. But I think you've got to understand that if it's the river card or you were in front up until that moment, you've got to be happy you had your chips in the pot. And if over the course of a career you actually get your money in if you have the best hand, then perhaps the better players will lose more often to the river card. So the better players should learn not to go on tilt. It's the weaker players that go on tilt that are the problem, because then, of course, you don't know what they're going to do and their chips are up for offer.
Yes, tilt is tough, but one player who knows a little bit about tilt, in fact, he's the only man in the world to eat breakfast on tilt, former world champion Phil Hellmuth.
Playing on tilt, showing emotion at the table. I wouldn't know anything about that. I get very emotional at the table, and sometimes it costs me a lot of chips. Sometimes, though, I can act emotional when I'm really strong. So I think that controlling tilt's an important thing. Letting your emotion flow is an important thing too, but you can't let it affect the way you play your hands. So if you feel you're on tilt, count your chips. That's simple. Put your mind back in the game. 2,420 chips. 2,420 chips. Count your chips a couple of times and maybe pick up your cards with just your left hand. When you do that, you tend to fold more. Those are 2 good ways to get off tilt.
Well, there you have it. Phil Hellmuth says, first thing you need to do if you're on tilt, Steve, stop your hands.
And pick them up with your left hand. You get bad cards with your left hand.
But, I mean, I think what Phil's saying is if you have some kind of trigger in your mind that you can use to calm yourself down, then that's what you have to go with.
I think everybody should have some way of trying to cope with their emotions, and whatever works for you is very important.
Well, let's hope none of our semi-finalists have to deal with tilt tonight, but let's be honest, if they do, it'll be fun to watch. So let's see who's in the seats. It's a tough lineup, and we're lucky to be joined by two of those players, Yanni Sointula and Dave Clayton. Now, Yanni, it's a bit of a different setup here. 3 go through instead of 1. So are you going to play a different strategy?
I try to play aggressive, but not risking or...
So you're going to be aggressive but safe. But if you were given a choice between going to the final table with low chips or perhaps risking going out to go with a big stack, is it a decision?
I risk it.
You're a gambler at heart.
Dave, you had a fairly easy passage, as easy as it can be in this format, through to the semi-finals.
Thanks for that.
Obviously, I was commentating. Obviously, the standard is higher. Have you made a game plan? Have you made a conscious decision because there's those 3 spots to get through?
I think early on play quite tight, and then obviously become more aggressive as blinds start to increase. I think people will tend to lock up when there's 4 players left in because they'll be trying to get into the final. I think players that have got like big bankrolls might not care about the difference between 5 and 10,000, but I think there are players at this table that will want the 10th. You know what I mean, just try and limp into the final.
Well, there's going to be 6 players at this semi-final table. Only 3 go through. They're getting ready. They're putting on their makeup. They're putting on their visors. We'll be right back at this PartyPoker.com European Open to see what happens.
No one to play with? There's always PartyPoker.com.
Well, if it's anything like last week, it'll be a barn burner. If it's better, it'll be hotter. Steve Davis and myself will be guiding you through, so let's get over to the table. Players, of course, beginning this game as the others with 100,000 in tournament chips. Those yellow chips worth 1,000 each. The blues worth 2,000, and the reds are what you want. They are 5,000 apiece. Putting 600,000 in tournament chips on this table, which means an average stack at the final table will be 200,000. That may be a magic number for some of these players. It'll be interesting to see if somebody reaches that level, if they then dial it down and just try and limp into the final, of course, where the big money is. But every place gets paid at this semifinal, Steve. 6th place will receive 5,000 in cash, 5th place 7,500, 4th place 10,000, and then it's a guaranteed 20,000 or more at that final table.
Yes, and of course the most interesting thing for anybody joining this for the first time, normally every heat, only 1 winner goes through to the next round. This is the semi-final stage, and 3 of these 6 players go through to the final. So a totally different mindset required.
And because every place counts, you basically can make money just by folding, and some players may choose just to do that.
Exactly. Say there's 4 players left, and there's a big all-in bet, and you're very low stacked. You may not necessarily have to go all in, because 2 players knock each other out, you're through to the final, albeit with a low stack.
That's guaranteed 10,000 extra. It is cards in the air for this first hand, and Peter Gialis is found the King-Jack under the gun, and blinds are 1 in 2,000, so it's 2 to call.
An early decision to be made there for Gialis. Does he get aggressive?
I think he's made it 12,000 to go. That's a pretty massive bet in first position with King-Jack the first hand.
Well, it's represented a massive hand, and it's got a quality player off Ace-Queen.
Wow. Yeah, and he must think that Peter is playing tight. He wants no part of it. And that's a real statement early on from De Gialis.
It certainly is. I think he looked at the King-Queen, King-Jack. They looked impressive, and he immediately thought, well,